My childhood love dumped me, then got mad her mom set me up. Too bad I was already engaged. The beginning of this story doesn't lie in heartbreak, betrayal, or dramatic confrontations. It lies in a childhood painted with the soft colors of innocence. Dusty playgrounds, mango-stained summers, chalk-scribbled promises, and laughter that echoed through narrow streets where everyone knew each other by name. Back then, I was just a boy, and she was just a girl. But in the way childhood works, she somehow became the center of everything before I even understood what everything meant. Her name was Noor, and in those early years, she was the one who dragged me into trouble, defended me when I stuttered in class, and claimed the empty seat next to me like it was her birthright. She had that kind of presence, loud without speaking, warm without trying. Every morning, she would knock on my door before school, tapping the wooden frame with her knuckles in the exact same rhythm. I used to joke that even if I went deaf someday, I would still recognize her knock. She would laugh, shove me lightly, and tell me I was stupid, but she always smiled afterward, like the routine was a part of our unspoken language. By the time we reached middle school, everyone already teased us. Future couple, childhood lovers, inseparables. We pretended to be annoyed, but secretly we believed them. Maybe that's why growing up with her felt like growing toward something, toward a life that felt predestined. Her dreams were big, loud, ambitious. Mine were quieter, simple, steady, shaped by the kind of comfort that only a predictable future could give. Nor wanted the world. I wanted her. When we finally confessed our feelings in our late teens, it wasn't dramatic. No fireworks, no trembling voices. Just a quiet moment on the rooftop where she rested her head on my shoulder and said, "I think I've been in love with you my whole life." I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something inside me click into place. Like the universe had finally aligned. For a while, everything was perfect. The kind of perfect you don't trust because you're scared to blink and lose it. We applied to colleges together. We talked about apartments, careers, the future. She joked about our wedding. I pretended to laugh, even though the idea of a future with her didn't scare me at all. It felt inevitable. It felt like breathing. But the truth about childhood love is this. It grows, yes, but so do the people in it. And sometimes one grows faster. The cracks began subtly, the way all heartbreaks do. A missed call here, a forgotten plan there. She became distant in ways I couldn't name. She started hanging around people who wanted bigger things, faster things. People who saw love as a phase, not a foundation. She said she felt stuck, that our relationship felt too small for her life. I asked her what that meant. She didn't answer. She just stared at her phone, like it held all the solutions she couldn't say out loud. The night she broke up with me wasn't loud. It wasn't emotional. It was disturbingly calm. We stood outside her hostel under a flickering yellow streetlight. She crossed her arms, avoided my eyes, and said, "I think we should take a break. I don't want to be tied down." The words didn't hit me all at once. They landed slowly, like raindrops before a storm. I tried to ask questions. Was it something I did? Was she unhappy? Was there someone else? But she shook her head each time, almost irritated. "I just want space. I want to live for myself for a while." Then she said the one sentence that hollowed me out completely. "I know you'll wait for me. You always do." And that was it. The arrogance, the assumption, the belief that I was so in love with her I would orbit her forever, even if she pushed me away. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I didn't play the dramatic hero she expected. I simply nodded, swallowed the burn in my throat, and walked away, even though every step felt like betrayal. That night, I learned something painful. Sometimes people mistake your loyalty for permanence. Sometimes they believe they can leave and find you standing in the same place when they return. I didn't know it then, but that simple decision to walk away with whatever dignity I had left would be the one thing she regretted more than anything. The weeks after the breakup didn't feel like weeks. They felt like a fog, a long, unmeasured stretch of time where days melted into each other and nights felt heavier than they should. People talk about heartbreak like it's a single moment, a sharp pain that eventually dulls. But heartbreak is slower, quieter, more suffocating. It's waking up each morning forgetting for a split second and then remembering with a sudden weight in your chest. It's finding traces of someone everywhere, in songs and routines, in muscle memory. Nora had been a part of my life for so long that losing her felt less like a breakup and more like losing a limb. I wasn't angry at first. I wasn't even hurt. I was just empty, like someone had scooped out the inside of me and left a shell behind. Everyone could see it. My mother tried pretending she didn't notice, but she hovered more than usual, bringing me food, reminding me to sleep, gently asking if I wanted to talk. I didn't. How could I explain something I couldn't understand myself? My friends tried pulling me back into life with weekend plans and stupid jokes, but nothing stuck. I'd laugh at something, then immediately feel guilty for laughing. Healing felt like betrayal. Moving on felt like abandoning something sacred. It was ridiculous, but heartbreak makes you ridiculous. What made it worse was how Nor vanished so easily. No calls, no messages, no explanations. She cut clean through our years together, like they were threads she could snip without looking back. And maybe that was the part that hurt the most, not the breakup, but the ease with which she erased me. I tried convincing myself that she needed space, that she'd return when she was ready, that this was temporary. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had outgrown me, or at least she thought she had. I began throwing myself into work, staying late at the office even when there was nothing left to do, volunteering for tasks I didn't care about, pretending to be busy because the alternative was sitting alone with my thoughts. My mother watched me silently, her eyes carrying a softness that made me feel both safe and seen. Two things I desperately needed but didn't know how to ask for. One evening, she placed a cup of tea beside me and said, in the gentlest tone, "Beta, life doesn't stop because someone walks away. It pauses, yes, but it doesn't end." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But moving on felt like betraying Nor, betraying the version of myself who had believed in her so fiercely. Still, life had a strange way of pushing forward even when you resisted. And one day, while I was sitting at the dining table staring blankly at my untouched dinner, my mother said something that changed the direction of everything. "There's a girl my friend wants you to meet. Just meet her, no pressure, no expectations." At first, I refused instantly. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to talk to someone new. I didn't want to pretend I was fine. Most of all, I didn't want to replace anyone. But my mother wasn't asking me to fall in love again. She wasn't promising miracles or fresh starts. She just wanted me to breathe, something I hadn't done properly in months. Just one meeting. She said, "If you don't like her, we never bring it up again." Her voice was calm, not pushy. She wasn't trying to fix me. She just didn't want me drowning alone. After days of resisting, I finally said yes. Not because I wanted to meet anyone, but because I wanted to prove that Nor didn't still control all my choices. Maybe this was a step toward healing. Maybe it was too soon. Maybe I was doing the wrong thing. But standing still was suffocating me, and I needed movement, even if it was slow and clumsy. The day of a meeting, I felt a tightness in my chest, like I was betraying some unspoken rule. I kept thinking Nor would suddenly message, that she'd come back, that she'd say she regretted everything. But she didn't. Not a single word from her. And maybe that was the world's way of telling me, you were holding on to someone who already let go. I arrived at the cafe 20 minutes early. Hands cold, heart heavier than I cared to admit. I wasn't expecting anything. Not hope, not connection, not closure. I just wanted to sit through the meeting, go home, and tell my mother I tried. That's it. But fate has a strange sense of timing. Because the girl who walked to the cafe door didn't feel like a replacement. She felt like a beginning I wasn't prepared for. Her name was Alina, and in that moment, something in the air shifted. Not dramatically, not romantically, just quietly enough for me to notice. Alina walked into the cafe with the kind of presence that didn't demand attention, but naturally drew it. Not because she was flashy or dramatic, but because there was a calmness about her, like she was carrying her own quiet world with her, untouched by the noise outside. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't dressed like someone attending a formal meeting arranged by parents. She wore something simple, a soft beige sweater, dark jeans, a small silver pendant resting near her collarbone. Her hair was tied loosely, a few strands falling over her face. But it wasn't her appearance that struck me first. It was the expression she wore, gentle, composed, and unbothered by the pressure of first impressions. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look curious. She simply looked present. I stood up awkwardly as she approached. She smiled just slightly, not the polite, mechanical smile people give out of obligation, but a warm, genuine one that softened the edges of the room. "You must be—" "Yes," I answered before she finished, a bit too quickly, and she laughed quietly. That laugh did something strange to the heaviness inside me. Not lift it, exactly, but loosen it just enough for me to breathe a little easier. We sat down. For a moment, silence hung between us. A comfortable silence, not a tense one. She looked at the menu, then at me, then at the people around us as if absorbing the atmosphere. Finally, she placed the menu down and said, "Before anything else, let's agree on something. No pretending, no forced smiling, no trying too hard. Just honesty. If we don't like each other, we say so and go home. Easy." I blinked, surprised. Most arranged meetings began with stiff politeness and scripted questions. But she approached it like a human conversation, not a negotiation. "Agreed," I said, and that one simple word shifted the entire tone of the meeting. She began talking, not about relationships, not about expectations, but about life, the things that irritated her, the things she admired, how she loved rainy weather, hated small talk, preferred mountains over beaches, liked silence more than loud gatherings. She talked with clarity, not arrogance. She wasn't trying to impress me, nor was she trying to attract me. She was simply being herself, and it was refreshing in a way I didn't expect. When she asked about me, I hesitated. I didn't know how much of my truth to share. She noticed the hesitation instantly. "You don't have to answer anything that feels heavy," she said gently. "We're not here to force a connection." That made something inside me settle. I found myself telling her things I hadn't planned to reveal, not deep secrets, but small truths. How I liked early mornings. How I hated crowded places. How I used to run every evening before life got complicated. At one point, she leaned forward and asked, "Did someone break your heart recently?" I froze. The question wasn't invasive. It was simply intuitive. She read my silence like a page. "It's okay if you're not ready," she added. Her voice wasn't pitying. It was understanding, like she knew what bruised hearts looked like. So I answered with honesty instead of details. "Yes, a while back." "That means you're human," she said with a small smile. "Not a problem." The conversation drifted naturally. Minutes became hours. I didn't check my phone once. I didn't scan the room for an escape route. I didn't feel the weight of performance. With her, everything felt grounded, real. There was no spark of dramatic love, no sudden surge of emotion, no butterflies. Instead, there was a steady warmth, like stepping into a room with soft lighting after being in harsh sun for too long. A sense of stability, a sense of being allowed to exist without judgment. At one point, she asked, "What do you want from life?" No one had asked me that in months, not even myself. I thought for a moment before answering. Something peaceful, something that doesn't feel like a constant test. She nodded as if she understood exactly what I meant. "Same," she said. "I don't want chaos. I want consistency. Someone who chooses me every day, not because they're expected to, but because they want to." Her words lingered in the air. Not heavy, just meaningful. When our meeting ended, she didn't say anything dramatic. She simply stood, offered her hand, and said, "If you'd like to meet again, I won't mind. If not, no hard feelings." That simplicity struck me more than any romantic gesture could, because she wasn't clinging, wasn't desperate, wasn't insecure. She understood that connections grow naturally or not at all. I walked out of the cafe feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Lightness, not love, not attachment, not excitement. Just a quiet knowing that something inside me had shifted. Not because I had fallen for her, but because, for the first time since Nor left, I didn't feel broken. I didn't know it yet, but this meeting wasn't just a conversation. It was a beginning of the change Nor would soon regret more than anything. Life, as strange as it is, doesn't always warn you before shifting direction. Sometimes it happens quietly, subtly, almost politely. My meetings with Alina became that kind of shift, soft, unforced, natural. We met again and again and again, each time without pressure. Some days we talked for hours. Some days we sat in comfortable silence, sipping coffee while the world moved around us. I didn't fall in love with her instantly. No fireworks, no violins. But I began to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Stability. And for a man who had been scattered into pieces, that feeling was everything. Slowly, my mother began noticing the change. "Your eyes look less tired," she told me one morning. I didn't deny it. Healing wasn't a straight line. It was more like a curve bending toward peace. But peace, I learned, has enemies. And sometimes, those enemies are chapters from your own past. It happened on a random afternoon, a Wednesday, the kind of day you expect nothing from. My phone buzzed while I was at work. I glanced at the screen casually and froze. Nor, her name looked unfamiliar, strange, almost intrusive on my screen. The girl who had been silent for months. The girl who had walked away so confidently. The girl who told me to wait while she chased whatever version of freedom she believed she deserved. Her message was only 3 words. Can we talk? Those 3 words carried the weight of everything I thought I had buried. Old wounds, old hopes, old versions of myself. For a moment, I didn't breathe. Then I placed the phone down and stared at it like it was a ghost from another life. I didn't answer immediately. I waited, thought, wondered, and then finally I replied, "About what?" She responded instantly, as if she'd been waiting for my reply for hours. "Please, just one conversation. There are moments in life when you know the past is about to test you." I felt it in my bones. Still, I agreed to meet her, not out of love, not out of longing, but out of a need for closure I didn't realize I still carried. We met the next day in a quiet park near her old hostel. She arrived looking different, older, tired, wearing an expression that wasn't arrogance anymore, but a mixture of regret and desperation. Her hair was tied up messily, her eyes puffy as if she hadn't slept. The moment she saw me, something inside her softened and collapsed at the same time. "You look different," she said quietly. "So do you," I replied. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, without warning, she started talking fast, words tumbling out like she'd been holding them in too long. "I made a mistake," she said. "I thought breaking up would make my life bigger. I thought chasing freedom would make me happier. But I was wrong." Her voice cracked slightly. "Nothing feels right without you." I listened, not interrupting, not reacting. She continued, "I thought you would fight for me. I thought you'd hate the idea of losing me. I thought that I'd wait forever." I finished for her. She looked down. "Yes." Her honesty hit harder than any guilt-driven speech could have, because it wasn't cruelty, it was her truth. She genuinely believed I was hers to return to whenever she wanted. "I didn't think you'd move on," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought you'd still be waiting." There it was, the flaw in her worldview, the silent arrogance of someone who believed love meant possession. She thought our past guaranteed her a future guarantee. I took a slow breath. "Nor, you left. You didn't ask if I could handle it. You didn't ask if I was okay. You walked away and didn't look back." She winced. I know. I just didn't think you'd give up on us." "Give up?" That word felt heavy with irony. "You didn't give me anything to hold on to," I replied. "You wanted space. You wanted independence. You wanted a life without me. And now I don't," she whispered, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I want you, the old me, the boy who loved her ridiculously, stupidly, blindly, would have broken at those words, would have taken her back without hesitation. But I wasn't that boy anymore. Time had changed me. Pain had matured me. And Alina had steadied parts of me I didn't know were salvageable." I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I looked at Nor carefully and realized something important. This wasn't about love returning. This was about someone realizing too late what they had taken for granted. And the universe wasn't done showing her that truth yet. The engagement ceremony happened in a quiet, golden-lit hall. Not the grand, sparkling ballroom my ex always dreamed of, not the breathtaking destination venue she used to show me in Pinterest screenshots, but something warmer, more grounded, more real. Soft fairy lights draped across the ceiling like constellations, the kind you notice only when you're not trying to impress the world. The aroma of vanilla candles mixed with roses drifted through the room and wrapped everything in a slow, dreamlike haze. I stood there in a charcoal suit, hands loosely clasped, trying to pretend my heartbeat wasn't echoing louder than the soft piano music. People smiled, whispered, laughed politely. On the surface, everything was perfect. But beneath my ribs sat a storm, a dull, quiet ache from the one person who chose to bruise me first and cry later. The same girl who left when loving me wasn't convenient, who came back when it wasn't her turn anymore. And I'll be honest, some part of me was waiting for a message, a call, a dramatic interruption, something. But the door stayed closed, and life, for once, didn't stop for heartbreak. My fiancée, Elena, stood beside me wearing a soft ivory dress that flowed like moonlight. She wasn't loud. She wasn't clingy. She wasn't trying to perform love for an audience. She had a calmness in her that softened the sharp edges of the world. When she smiled at me, it wasn't a spark. It was warmth, a steady flame instead of fireworks. When her mother had first suggested the match, I'd resisted, confused and still bleeding from the hurt my ex left me with. But over time, Elena didn't try to replace anything. She simply made space for me, not to forget, but to breathe. The ceremony began. People murmured blessings, and somewhere in the middle of all the clinking glasses and polite laughter, memories hit me in flashes. My ex, laughing with her hair tied up, sitting on the swings with me in elementary school, stealing my fries, promising forever with eyes that sparkled like trouble. But memories do one thing exceptionally well. They romanticize ghosts. Just when I was finally steadying myself, my cousin rushed toward me, his phone half hidden in his palm, whispers bouncing out at him like he couldn't cage them. "She's outside," he muttered, eyes wide. He didn't need to say her name. I felt her presence, like a familiar shadow stretching into a place that no longer belonged. My chest tightened, but not from longing, from a strange mix of closure and irritation. She had left me but couldn't stand seeing me move on. Even now, she wasn't here because she loved me. She was here because losing control terrified her. I excused myself politely, stepping away from the hall's glowing warmth into the cooler hallway where her silhouette leaned against the wall. Her eyes lifted immediately, wide and shimmering like she rehearsed the sadness in them. "So it's true," she whispered, voice trembling in a way she probably hoped would unbalance me. "You're engaged." Her presence should have made me shatter. It should have broken something in me. But instead, it felt like looking at an old photograph. Something familiar, maybe even precious once, but faded and flattened by time. "You dumped me." I reminded her softly, not with anger, but with the simple honesty she always hated. "You made that choice." "I know," she whispered, stepping closer, her perfume stirring memories I didn't want. "But I didn't think you'd move on so fast." I almost laughed, not in mocking, just disbelief. "Fast," I said quietly. "You moved on the second. You thought someone better was interested in you. You only came back when things didn't go your way." She flinched, guilt flickering through her expression. "I got scared," she murmured. "I messed up, but you were always supposed to be mine." That word, mine, unraveled the last thread of sympathy I had left. Because that was her problem. Always. She didn't want love. She wanted ownership. She didn't want partnership. She wanted possession. And suddenly, standing there with the weight of her regret pressing into me, I realized something I hadn't been able to see before. She wasn't heartbroken that she lost me. She was heartbroken that someone else found me. I stepped back, not out of anger, just clarity. "I was yours," I said, "until you stopped treating me like someone worth keeping." Her tears finally spilled, and for a second, the boy inside me, the one who once loved her fiercely, felt the sting of it. But the man standing in front of her, he felt free. "Goodbye," I whispered softly, not with bitterness, but with release. Then I walked back into the hall where Elena stood waiting, her calm eyes lifting to meet mine. And for the first time, I chose someone not because of history, but because of the future that suddenly didn't feel so frightening anymore. When I stepped back into the hall, it felt like walking from a storm into a sunrise. The soft golden light shimmered gently across the room, catching the crystal edges of the decor, making everything glow in a way that didn't feel extravagant, just peaceful. Elena stood near the stage, talking to her younger cousin, her hands clasped gracefully, her smile small but sincere. She looked nothing like the chaos I had just walked away from, and maybe that was the point. She wasn't a whirlwind. She was a calm shore after years of drowning. And for the first time, I realized my heart wasn't racing out of guilt from my past. It was racing toward my future. As I approached her, Elena's eyes lifted to mine, soft concern flickering through them. She didn't ask where I had gone. She didn't interrogate me. She simply tilted her head slightly, silently asking if I was okay. That simple gesture felt more grounding than any love confession I had ever received. It was understanding without pressure, presence without demand. And damn, I hadn't known how badly I needed that. "You're back," she said quietly, as though my absence had been a brief pause in music rather than a confrontation with a ghost from my childhood. "I'm back," I echoed, and it wasn't just an answer, it was a decision. People around us continued celebrating, clinking glasses, offering good wishes, unaware of the emotional battle I had just walked through. And maybe that was the beauty of it. Life didn't pause for heartbreak or resolution. It moved forward. It always did, even when we weren't ready, even when we were still bleeding. Maybe that's why closure is something you give yourself, not something you wait for. Elena stepped closer, finger brushing my sleeve. "You look like you've been thinking about something heavy," she said softly. It wasn't a complaint. It was an observation. She didn't want drama. She wanted honesty. And for once, I felt ready to give it. Someone from my past showed up. I admitted, someone I thought wanted me back. Her eyes didn't widen in jealousy. She didn't stiffen. She didn't look away. Instead, she took a slow breath, grounding herself before grounding me. "And what did you feel?" she asked. Not who was it, not why, just what did you feel? More than love. Respect begins there. I felt like I finally understood why it ended. I said, my voice felt lighter, as if saying out loud loosened something inside me. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was history. Elena's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. Not triumphant, not smug, just relieved. "Good," she whispered, "because you deserve someone who stays, not someone who returns only when life stops going their way." The hall began to dim slightly as the host prepared for the ring ceremony, the soft sound of a violin drifting through the speakers. The atmosphere thickened with warmth, like time itself was bending gently toward the moment. Elena's family gathered around, her mother smiling proudly, her father adjusting his glasses, pretending not to cry. My own family hovered nearby, my mother silently mouthing instructions about standing straight and smiling more. It was chaotic, but a warm, familiar chaos, one that didn't leave scars. The rings were brought in a velvet box, small and elegant. I opened it, my chest rising and falling a bit too fast, not because of fear, but because of clarity. Elena extended her hand, and I slid the ring onto her finger. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic in the loud, theatrical way my past relationship had been. It was quiet, steady, a moment that didn't demand attention, but still felt powerful enough to shift the ground beneath my feet. Then she placed a ring on my finger, her touch lingering for a second longer than necessary. "Whatever life throws at us," she whispered softly, "we choose each other, not out of convenience, but out of respect." Those words settled into me like a promise I actually want to keep. The applause rose around us, but all I saw was her, standing there in soft ivory, eyes warm, shoulders relaxed, never trying to perform perfection, just being real, just being hers. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was stepping into a future haunted by the past. I felt like I was stepping into a future that belonged to me. Behind me, the past had finally stopped reaching. In front of me, the future finally felt real. And beside me stood someone who didn't need to be my whole world to be the right one. The celebration carried deep into the evening, but even as the music swelled and people moved around us in gentle waves of laughter and conversation, there was a strange stillness settling inside me, like the calm after years of silent wars. For the first time, my heart wasn't split between memory and possibility. It wasn't fighting old wounds or rehearsing imaginary conversations. It felt present, whole, and as ridiculous as it sounded, I realized I had forgotten what that felt like. To stand in a moment and not look backward. To breathe without waiting for something to go wrong. To exist in a space where love didn't feel like a battlefield but a bridge. The realization crept into my chest slowly, then all at once, anchoring itself beneath my ribs. Elena and I stepped out onto the balcony when the hall grew too warm. A soft breeze brushed against us, carrying the muted hum of music from inside. The city lights shimmered below like tiny stars scattered across the earth. She leaned against the railing, her hair drifting gently with the wind, her expression thoughtful. Without looking at me, she asked, "Are you happy?" It wasn't a trick question. It wasn't insecurity. It was genuine curiosity, an honest check-in from someone who wasn't afraid of the answer. And the truth surprised me in how easily it came out. "Yeah," I murmured, exhaling softly. "I think, for the first time in a long time, I really am." She turned toward me, those calm eyes holding the kind of steady warmth you could build a home out of. "Good," she whispered, "because happiness should never feel like a gamble." Something about that line struck deeper than I expected. Maybe because my childhood love had always made joy feel conditional. Something I had to earn, something that could be revoked. I spent years thinking love had to be dramatic to be meaningful, chaotic to be real. But standing here with Elena, surrounded by quiet, steady light, I realized something that would have shocked my younger self. Peace could feel like passion too, just a different kind. Softer, but stronger. She reached for my hand, gently intertwining her fingers with mine. "There's something I want to say," she murmured, "and I hope it won't scare you." I turned to her, brows lifting slightly. "Tell me." "I know this engagement started because our families wanted it," she began, voice gentle but firm. "But I don't want a life where you feel trapped or obligated. I want to build something with someone who chooses me freely. Every day, not because fate pushed him toward me. Not because the past hurt him. Not because it was convenient." She paused, searching my face. "I want to be with you because you want to be with me. And if that ever changes, I want you to tell me, even if it hurts." Her honesty hit me like a breath of cold air, sharp but refreshing. She wasn't asking for guarantees or grand promises. She was asking for transparency, partnership, mutual choice. Something I'd never truly been offered before. I squeezed her hand lightly. "Elena, I'm here because I want to be, not because of the past. Not because I'm running from something, but because with you, I feel like I can finally stop running." Her eyes softened, a slow warmth blooming there. "Then I'm glad," she whispered. We stood there for a long moment, breathing in the cool night air. Inside, people continued celebrating, unaware that something profound had just shifted. Something quiet but life-altering. A sense of belonging, of mutual trust, settled between us like the final, perfect stroke in a painting. Eventually, she rested her head lightly against my shoulder. "You know," she said, a small smile in her voice, "I used to worry I wouldn't be enough compared to the person you loved." "You're not supposed to be her," I said softly. "You're supposed to be you, and that's more than enough." She exhaled, relief mixed with gratitude, and for a moment, the world felt perfectly aligned. I didn't know what our future would look like. I didn't know if fate had more storms waiting for us or if peace would continue to follow. But what I did know was simple. I wasn't carrying the past anymore. I wasn't grieving what could have been. I wasn't longing for someone who only remembered my worth when someone else claimed it. I was walking into a new life beside a woman who didn't try to outshine my pain or erase it. She simply stood with me while it healed. And maybe that's what love should have been all along. Not possession, not performance, not drama, just choice. every day, in both directions. And tonight, for the first time, that choice felt effortless.